When all of this started, I had 5 toes on each foot. Now I only have the bones, and even those are crumbling apart. I'm rotting, but it's slow. It's agonizing. It's going to consume me, and I need help. I'm part of a very bad family. But it's not my fault. I was never a part of any of this. Look, I've always been the odd sibling out. By that I mean my brother and sister were clearly my parents' favorites. I was always the last to know anything, even as a little kid. I thought the basement thing was just a joke. When I was younger, they would tease me about the secret hidden in our family basement. Mom and Dad were very strict about the wine cellar. It was an adult-only zone, apparently. But, of course, my siblings wanted to make it sound more interesting than it really was. Once I questioned them, they'd just smirk and say, "What secret?" in a sing-song voice. I was my siblings' punching bag. But that didn't stop me fighting back. When Noah tried dragging me down there, I was just a terrified 7-year-old, and he was a whole 2 years older. He kept whispering about the screams. "Ghosts," he said, tugging me closer. Noah shoved me. "Did you know the cellar is so cold you can see your breath?" He pulled me further down the steps to the wine cellar, giggling. "I heard that if you peek under the door, you can see blood." When he tried to scare me, I panicked and shoved him down the stairs. He wasn't hurt, but I did think I had accidentally killed my brother. After that, both of them dropped the ghost stories. Noah still liked to bring them up time to time, especially when we were in the dark. "Can you hear that?" he'd say, 12 years old, determined to freak me out. "It's him," he purposely widened his eyes. "The drowned ghost. Sometimes you can see ice coming through the door." By the age of 9, I was pretty much immune to my brother's spooky stories. In their own fucked up way, my siblings used some kind of messed up reverse psychology. By making the wine cellar seem like it was filled with ghosts, they actually made me less curious. I wrote it off as haunted, or cursed. Growing up, the two of them mentioned the wine cellar less. During holidays, it was always them ordered to go get the expensive wine. When I asked if I could retrieve it, my parents just shook their heads, smiled, and said, "You wouldn't understand." Eve never had a great relationship with my family. But I forced myself to attend my mother's brunch yesterday. I left home pretty much the second I graduated high school and never looked back. My siblings were the reason I left. The two of them were completely insufferable and never got better. They were spoiled brats I wanted to distance myself from as quickly as possible. Mom sent me a text last week that basically said, "You don't love me anymore, do you?" So I had no choice but to show up to brunch with a smile on my face. The truth is, when I received that text, I did still love her, and part of me was guilty for staying as far away as possible. Then, on my way inside my mother's house, I walked straight into my heavily pregnant sister and her 3 kids. She greeted me like she would greet a dog. It was no secret my sister Anastasia was the golden child. Noah, my brother, was more of a mistake, pegged by our parents themselves. While I was just kind of there. I existed. Anastasia, my 26-year-old sister, was the embodiment of perfection, according to my mother. She was one with the grades, the awards, the captain of her varsity soccer team, and an artist. Mom had all her paintings hung up in the hallway. Drawings Anastasia had drawn as a child, framed in gold, while the masterpieces my brother and I drew were in some random closet. Anastasia had, of course, gotten pregnant the second she finished college. I wouldn't call her twins perfect. The two were screeching the second I stepped inside Mom's dining room. Anastasia completely ignored my greeting, and waddled over to me wearing this huge smile, like she had been waiting for me specifically. She immediately asked me if I had a boyfriend, and looked surprised when I said I didn't. I glimpsed Noah already guarding the drinks table, already drunk as usual. The two were tossing playful looks between each other, and I was already mentally exhausted. I wasn't planning on talking to either of them. I was just there to prove to our mother I hadn't completely abandoned her. Look, I could deal with the first, do you have a boyfriend? But my sister would not fucking let it go. She asked me a second time, when I grabbed food and gave my mother a hug. Anastasia floated around me with this wicked smile on her face. You didn't tell us about your boyfriend, she spoke over me talking about my job. Anastasia ignored me talking about my job, my friends, and a promotion, once again taking control of the conversion. Where's your boyfriend? She asked again, knowing I told her in confidence when I was 18, that I'm asexual. Back then, she didn't understand what it meant, insisting, oh, you just haven't found the right person. She was very clearly trying to get me to admit it to our parents. One thing about my sister is that she's cruel. She's always been evil. Noah's always been more of a sociopath. He dissected worms as a kid, and collected roadkill as experiments. My siblings and I only have one thing in common: our mother's dark red hair and pasty skin. That's the only thing that connects us. We could not be any more different. While they are budding psychopaths, I consider myself nothing like them. Anastasia is the subtle kind of cruel. She doesn't have to speak, all she has to do is glare at me over her glass, lips curled into a smug smile. I wasn't planning on staying long anyway, so, when she tried the "where's your boyfriend" BS again, I snapped. On her own wedding day, I caught Anastasia screwing around with a guy. She made me promise not to say anything, but it just kind of came out. Anastasia went tomato red, immediately denying it. Noah burst out laughing, turning to her. Wait, seriously? He laughed. Harry? The crypto guy? Mom just smiled and said, I love it when the three of you get together. You're so funny with your teasing and squabbling. I was done. I told Mom I would stay for around 4 hours. So, I just had to grit my teeth through another 2, and I was home free. Noah was drunk, and Anastasia was luckily held back by her duty as a mother. So, I wouldn't be getting slapped. When our extended family arrived, including my sister's sickly-looking hookup, I excused myself to avoid the fallout. I announced I was going to grab more wine, and my mother passed me, offering a cheek kiss. Mom stayed close, her breath in my ear. Sweetie, can you do something for me while you're down there? I'll do it, Mom. Noah was beside me in the blink of an eye, offering a cryptic wink. He turned to our mother, a grin spreading across his lips. You mean the thing, right? I can do it. Anastasia, however, had beat him to it. After talking to our brother in hushed whispers, their heads pressed together, she exited the room in 5 heel clacks. Noah waved with a scoff. Have fun! I followed her, keeping my distance. Anastasia strode down the hall, and just as I thought, headed towards the basement. When my sister disappeared behind the old wooden door, her dress pooling beneath her, I hurried to catch up. I felt the temperature the second I stepped over the threshold, leading to concrete steps. I shivered, wrapping my arms around myself. The ground floor was ice cold. Just like my brother said. I hated the way my heels click-clacked on concrete as I descended. I was too loud. The basement was exactly what I expected. Just an ordinary room filled with dusty old shelves lined with expensive fizz. One shelf blocked me from view, thankfully, allowing me to watch my sister stand on her tiptoes, select a bottle of Chardonnay, and take a long swig. Oh, it's my favorite person, another voicey guy's voice startled me, and I almost toppled over. But I couldn't see anyone. Anastasia didn't even blink, bathed in eerie white light. She continued drinking, downing half of the bottle, before coming up for air. I don't believe I gave you permission to speak, she spoke up, addressing the voice. Stop stalking me. What's wrong? The stranger mocked when she screwed the lid back on. Trouble in paradise? When Anastasia twisted around, I followed her, very slowly, stepping behind a shelf. With a full view, I couldn't fucking believe what I was seeing. bile creeping up my throat. I remember slamming my hand over my mouth, but there was no scream. I felt like I was suffocating. There was a man in our basement. No. It was a boy. Early 20s. He stood out among the mundane, chained to the walls, vines like withered ropes wrapped around his throat. He was almost glowing, cruel scarlet against the clinical white of our basement. Anastasia strode over to the boy, and the more I stared, the more I realized he wasn't just bound to the walls. Twisting branches and chains stretched deeper, binding him to the endless, warped building blocks of our home's foundation. This boy wasn't just my family's prisoner. I could see his blood painting the walls, his bones engraved in cement. He was our home. I felt physically sick, my body trembling like it didn't know what to do. I had to get out, I thought, hysterically. I had to get the cops. The boy was handsome, college-aged, with thick red hair falling over colorless eyes that I think once held a spark. He was beyond human, beyond terrestrial. A human body with the sprouting wings of something not. I can't call him an angel. He was more a mockery of one, horrific wing-like appendages jutting from his naked spine. His head hung low, filthy brown curls falling into half-lidded eyes. In front of him stood an altar, lit by the orangeade flame of a candle. On it lay a knife with a gilded handle. I could tell by the color, by the state of him, his skin more leather than flesh, his heart marked to be carved. The knife had already been used. I stepped back, my steps shaky, my breath lodged in my throat. How many times had members of my family used this knife? Anastasia picked it up, running her manicured fingers along the blade, and pressing its teeth against his throat. But the boy didn't look scared. He cocked his head, his lips forming a smile. Like he was used to my sister, used to her meetings, used to her fucking cruelty. You know, for a spoiled brat with everything, you don't look very happy, Annie. My sister smiled patiently. It's Anastasia. You know that. The boy nodded slowly. Where's Noah? Anastasia sighed. She took a step back, running her hand through her hair. You don't have to make it obvious, you know. The boy didn't respond, and she continued, reaching forward, pricking his chin with her nails, forcing him to look at her. He did, unblinking, like he was blank, mindless, a body only existing as glue. You obviously prefer my brother, she murmured. It's been clear since we were kids, but my sister sighed. Well, I suppose I had a stupid little crush. The boy didn't jerk away from her grasp. You look like you're having a bad day. Anastasia surprised me with a laugh. I hate my family, she hummed. When he responded with a sarcastic, I wonder why, she sliced his throat. Something ice-cold slithered down my spine. I thought she was bluffing, just teasing the blade, until red began to run, seeping, pooling crimson down his neck. But she sliced right through his artery, with such precision, I wondered if she had done this before. Enough times to remember exactly where to carve. The boy's body jolted, lips parting, blood soaking him, paining him. He wheezed out a final breath. Anastasia had sliced him perfectly, severing his artery in one single flick. He was dead before I found myself on my knees, my clammy hand pressed against my mouth. His head flopped forward, hanging grotesquely, dark scarlet soaking my sister's dress and painting her face. Anastasia didn't blink, her fingers tightening around the knife. For a moment, I watched the life flow out of his battered body, stemming on the ground at my sister's heels. I waited for her to do something, to react to murdering someone. But just as I was slowly backing away, he jolted back to life, choking, spluttering, and puking gushing water. Straight into her face. Fuck. He shook his head, spitting up more water. I noticed that when it splashed onto the floor, it immediately froze over. Anastasia noticed the glittering ice across the floor, clinging to her heel, and staggered back. The boy regarded my sister with a spiteful smile. Where was I? Oh, right. His eyes glittered as he leaned forward, as far as the restraints would let him. I wonder why, Anastasia. Daughter of Kathleen. Great-granddaughter of Marybelle, the one with the gift. He smiled thinly. A gift granted by a fortune-teller. A gift that let her escape the fate written for her, in the stars, in the sea, on a voyage that would be cemented in history. His voice trailed off. His gaze drifted unfocused until it landed on my sister. Are you ever cold? He asked softly. Like she was meant to be? Drowning in those ice-cold waters. Like I am? He shivered, trembling in his restraints. And this time, I saw it clearly, a glittering frost creeping over his cheek, spiderwebbing down his neck, crystallizing in sticky strands of his hair. He tipped his head back, mockingly, waiting for the blade. Your great-grandmother's cowardice, her refusal to accept her fate, is why I'm here, he said, his voice dropping into a growl, curling like an animal. It's why you're here. Why your fucking family will never let me go. Why I have to drown, freeze, choke, bleed, and die. His voice broke, but he continued, leaning closer to my sister. Again and fucking gain, until your rotten string ends, and I can be free. He laughed, choking on a sob. Until then, I'll be in her place. In all of your places. I'm the one who has to fucking suffer for you. Anastasia shrugged and placed the knife back down on the altar. Before she passed, Grandmother said you were a street kid begging on the side of the road. You were useless and were going to die anyway. Her lips formed a smirk. You would have frozen either way. She was nice enough to give you a home, make your bones the foundation of us. Yet you're ungrateful. The boy ducked his head. You're making me fucking suffer. Anastasia reached out, cupping his cheeks. So, are you saying we should suffer? My sister hummed. I have children. She delicately rubbed her belly. So you're saying my children should suffer? Innocent babies? She picked up the knife, playing with the blade. If I were ever to free you, I would be signing my children's death warrant. He laughed, spitting in her face. They shouldn't even exist, he caught himself. Your great-grandmother should be dead. You were never supposed to be alive. Anastasia cut him off. She was losing her patience. Their names are Mari and Travis. You'll meet them soon. They will learn about you, and your sacrifice, and will continue the tradition. Then their children will. She stepped back. I'm going back upstairs now. I need a drink, and you aren't very cute anymore. Anastasia walked straight past me, not even paying me a glance. Have fun with him, sis, she said. The first time is always the best. When I was 8, I successfully carved out his heart. I grabbed her before she could leave. I think I was screaming. Crying. I told her we needed to help him, that we needed to call the cops. Anastasia tugged her wrist from my grip. Her eyes, when I found them, were hollow. My sister was a monster. You should really get a boyfriend, she murmured, jerking her head towards the boy. Anastasia's smile showed too many teeth. I think you two would be cute together. When she left, my sister knew exactly what I was thinking. So, she didn't have to drag me upstairs, or tell our parents. I don't think she was expecting me to do what I did. I stumbled over to him, and he immediately lurched back with a hiss. Get the fuck away from me, he spat. You're not due to kill me until tomorrow. I found my voice. I'm not going to hurt you. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak, only wincing when I ran my fingers down his chest, my heart, and my throat. Slowly, my hands found his restraints, tugging at them. Ow! His cry was more mocking. I started with the vines, pulling them from his neck, where he gasped for breath, and I realized, my heart pounding, that at that moment, the binding worked both ways. While he allowed the house life, the house breathed oxygen into his lungs. Still, I was careful, freeing him slowly enough that when the last withered ropes slipped from his neck, his body was acclimating to breathing on his own. I sliced the vines from his arms, pulled the nails pinning him to the walls, and he dropped into my arms. It took him a moment to realize he was free. Free from the house, from my family's bindings. He screamed, raw and painful, his body writhing, struggling to breathe. "I can't breathe," he gasped out. "Wait." I didn't think. I wrapped my arms around him and dragged him up the cement staircase, where, to my horror, blood was flowing. Like the house was bleeding. When a cry sounded upstairs, I wavered in my steps. Anastasia. Then my mother. "What are you doing?" he whispered through strangled breaths. "Put me back." His agony was evident, and yet part of me could hear his relief. The blood was getting thicker, streaming over each step. Upstairs, I was hit with the fallout. Older relatives were either dust or turning to dust, their clothes and shoes swamping the hallway. It was like a virus, spreading through the house. I passed my mother, her hair growing white, her face crumbling, her entire body coming apart in front of me. I couldn't do anything but watch, my heart pounding in my chest. Maybe I made a mistake, I thought, hysterically. But putting him back, chaining this boy to our walls, killing him over and over again to keep our family intact. I couldn't do that to him again. All I could do was push further forward, keeping hold of him. I needed to get him out, away from my psycho family. Mom was flesh, her eyes wide, lips screaming. Then blood and bone. Dust. Our entire extended family was there for Mom's brunch. Every single person connected to this house, to my great-grandmother. 12 people. Gone. Leaving only the younger generation. Anastasia was screaming, her hands over her ears. Noah sat perfectly still, an unnerving smile on his face. His gaze found mine, and then flickered to the boy. I could almost mistake his expression for relief. My sister's children were crying, and Anastasia herself grabbed me by the hair, pulling me back like a rag doll. She tried to grab the boy, but she was weak. To my surprise, Noah violently yanked her back. We made it to the door and out into the sunlight, and the boy started to cry. But he was smiling. Standing, or barely standing, leaning against me, his gaze found the sky, the sun, tears filling his eyes. When he stepped over the threshold, for a second, it felt like our house was stopping him, dragging him back. But it let go. It was too weak to hold on, and he stumbled out into blinding sunlight, straight onto his knees, sobbing. He looked so weak, so fragile, sunlight illuminating his scars, and the monstrous appendages splitting through his spine. My mother's house was slowly coming apart, the foundations waning. But not falling. It's been a day, and I am coming apart, just not like I thought I would. Noah is still alive. He called me yesterday to ask if the boy is all right. Noah said he wanted to tell me something, but I put the phone down on him. That was a mistake. I keep wondering why I'm still alive, when it should have caught up to me by now. I am my mother's last child, and the effects are clear in my spotty memories. I can't remember high school, or middle school. I can't remember my father's name. There's a slow-moving thing stripping my flesh to the bone. It's taken 4 toes and the very edge of my ear. This thing is eating me, but it's slow. Like it's struggling. The boy spoke for the first time a few hours ago. He's human, but something about how the house grew around him makes him not. He doesn't know his name or where he came from, so I called him Jasper. Right now, he's staying with me. Am not the only one, you know, he mumbled, stuffing himself with Chinese takeout I bought for the 2 of us. Angels, or half-angels, have one hell of a stomach. This guy had eaten half of my pantry, and was still hungry. I patched him up as best as I could. I did my best to gently bandage his wings to his back, avoiding the ugly incision in his spine. I gave him some of my clothes, sweatpants, and a baseball cap. For the first few hours, he was mute, almost feral, locking himself in the bathroom. I offered him food, and then he got a lot more talkative. Sitting cross-legged, his wings comfortably sandwiched inside his back, Jasper opened up about his kidnapping. When I was taken, I was snatched with a boy and a girl, to ensure that if this kind of thing happened, it wouldn't wipe all of you out. Jasper explained it like this. They would leave the closest descendants to the present, and any footprints or butterflies your grandmother left behind. He shrugged. Like people she befriended. They won't be affected. They're like you? I questioned. Jasper nodded, head inclined, like he was saying, duh. There are two others, he continued, holding out his hand. Soda. I passed him a Coke, and he cracked it open, taking a long drink. Mara and Robbie, he said, finishing the can. They're the reason you're still alive. Jasper's eyes darkened. Why, you're hanging by a thread. I think I was going to ask where, so I could free them. But then he dropped the bombshell. You're still going to rot, the boy said, pointing to the pearly white bones of my toes. I was trying to hide them, but it was getting increasingly obvious, creeping up my ankle. His lip curled, eyes narrowing in disgust. Because you shouldn't exist. Your ancestor was supposed to die on the Titanic. You're like a... He curled his lip, looking me up and down. Like a bug? He's right. And going to rot away, as a form of fixing a mistake. But unlike my mother and the older generation, it's slow. It's deliberate. It's cruel. Not just my body, but my memory. I'm writing this, trying to remember basic things, but my mind feels like it's being sucked out of my skull. When I do disappear, however long that takes, I won't be remembered. I won't even be a speck. It's like being chased. I know it's going to catch up with me. So please help me. Edit. Noah came to see me earlier. His entire arm has been stripped of skin, down to the bone, like some kind of flesh-eating virus. With him, it's faster. I don't understand why. He's only 2 years older than me, right? The rot seems to have changed my brother's perspective. I thought he once cared about the boy in our basement. I think he had a history with Jasper growing up. But now he's talking about recapturing Jasper and protecting him. No. He only cares about protecting himself. But I can't help wonder. Looking at Jasper right now, he's sleeping. He fell asleep watching old reruns of The Simpsons. He trusts me. If I plunge a blade through his heart, will I buy myself more time? If I make him suffer, will I live? I guess there's only one way to find out.